Hello and welcome to the Kings of Garbage Time Football podcast here on YouTube, where we try to help you navigate through the garbage that is mainstream football analysis. You could listen to two hotheads yell at each other on ESPN for an hour, or you could listen to committed football experts with grounded, intelligent takes and the statistics to back them up. Or you could listen to us as we try to help you become a more knowledgeable football fan and a better fantasy football general manager. I'm here with Colton Watson and Omar Rodriguez. How are you, fellas?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing great. Omar?
I'm doing fabulous today.
Awesome. All right. So we're doing the necessary offseason task of picking who we think is going to go to the playoffs this year. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. What do you say, guys?
Oh man, it's gonna be a good year, I think. We also got our choices in, so just gonna go through those really quick and see what happens.
All right. So there are only two divisions where we unanimously picked one team to win the division. The first one's the AFC East. We're all in on the Buffalo Bills, but I want to know, who do we think is most likely to knock off the Bills this year in the AFC East? Omar, you say it is the team that almost went to the playoffs last year, the Miami Dolphins. So I want you to defend yourself.
All right. Well, it's going to be a little tough because, as we know, a lot of people are down on Tua, but, some people are kind of high on him. So I personally think, it's just his second year and, he was pretty good in college, so I think he has potential to, break out and, kind of show us, his upsides that he's got, his legs. Then, they got a bunch of weapons this offseason. They got Will Fuller, who I think he's just supposed to miss maybe a game. I think he's put in a lot of good X Factor plays when he was in Houston. And now they have Jalen Waddle, who I'm personally a big fan of. I got him a good amount of shares of him in fantasy leagues already. He's definitely somebody who I'm excited to watch this year. And then I know you can agree with me when I say Myles Gaskin. But other than that, man, I think that, they have what it takes. Everybody else in the division seems to be looking to, do some changes too. I think that the Patriots definitely don't look like the Patriots we've seen in the past. I want to hear what you guys think.
It is true that I'm a big Myles Gaskin guy. We're on the Myles Gaskin RB1 train for 2021.
RB1 for half the season, yes.
So me and Colton actually came to the same answer here with the Patriots, but we came with a bit of a different perspective. I have the Patriots getting in as a wild card. Colton, you have neither the Patriots nor the Dolphins getting into the playoffs. So I want you.
No.
Is it just that the Dolphins are that bad, or
it's literally just because Patriots are good for one of these games a year, where you think the team's gonna crush them, and then Bill Belichick comes out with some crazy blitz or something, some awesome defense that he sets up, because that's where he's focused. His specialty is defense, and I'm down on the Patriots mainly because of the offense, right? So, but their defense to me is still top 5 in the league. So when you have a defense that good and you have a guy like Cam Newton at quarterback that's athletic, that can win games without throwing the football, then obviously it's going to lead to some good stuff there. And I think Bill Belichick can pull one out with the defensive game plan that would stop Josh Allen for at least a week. I'm not on them full time for the full season. I'm not believing in them, but I think for that one game, yeah, sure, definitely could stop the Bills.
All right, so let me make my Patriots playoff case here. So we know on defense, Dante Hightower opted out last season. He was one of many opt-outs for the Patriots. And then they just went on a spending spree in the offseason. On defense, they added Raekwon McMillan, Matthew Judon, Jalen Mills, Kyle Vanoy. And then on offense, they went from an offense whose best receiver was Jacoby Myers to an offense whose best receiver is either Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith, and they added Nelson Aguilar. So what I see from the Patriots is basically it's going to come down to quarterback play here. And I'm a big believer in Cam Newton. Everyone knows this. I love Cam Newton. I think if he starts out this next season at the pace that he did last season, the first 3 weeks of 2020, where he was electric, then this is obviously a playoff team. If not, and if he's terrible, Mac Jones comes in. There are a lot of people that believe in Mac Jones. If Mac Jones can just be a decent game manager, I still think this Patriots team is going to be in the playoff hunt late into the season. And I think they have the coaching to be able to get in. I think a lot of people are down on Belichick after we saw Brady go to the Buccaneers and win the Super Bowl. But I just don't see how you can count out that team as long as they have a quarterback that can keep them in games going forward.
So that's mainly what it is, right? It's literally just your belief in Cam Newton and even Mac Jones, who is probably going to replace him by the end of the season. So the thing for me is, yeah, sure, Cam Newton's good, but he's to the point where I think he's only very valuable if he puts his body on the line, right? So like, I can't see him just sitting back in the pocket like Brady used to do, throw checkdowns and stuff. He's going to have to run. And I don't know if his body can hold up for a full season enough to even make them a wild card spot. So that's just kind of where I land on the issue.
That is my one big concern, I'll say, with Cam Newton, is if that shoulder holds up, because obviously that shoulder sort of gave out at the end of last season. But he was also working with a roster of basically JV players last year.
Oh, for sure.
That was
running back.
That was arguably the worst offensive roster in the league last year. So
Jets are up there, but
man, but it's
same division, but
but it's tough. So I think the Patriots pull it out. So that's what I got.
A difference of opinions there then. For sure.
So from a difference of opinions to a unanimous opinion among the three of us, at least, is the Baltimore Ravens winning the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns finishing second, but getting into the playoffs. So the question here is, obviously we saw the Browns were really good last year. They managed to take the Chiefs down to the wire in the divisional round. What would it take for the Cleveland Browns to be able to get ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, in our opinion? So Colton, what do you think?
Oh man, I don't really know how they could be ahead. I think the most obvious answer is just looking at Baker Mayfield. He's QB, obviously the most important position on the field, right? So, and their team is set up like, if you look set up like wide receivers, tight ends, defense. I think defense for the Browns might even be better at this point than the Ravens. So literally it just comes down to, I think Lamar Jackson is just so much more dynamic than Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield is pretty streaky. He had a good rookie year. Everyone was very high on him, high on the offense, and then came back in his sophomore year and had a huge sophomore slump, looked terrible. And then last year looked really good again. So I don't know if he continues the route of self-improving and just continuing to evolve as a QB, then I could definitely see the Browns winning, because we all have them as wild cards anyways. It's just really that little level where Lamar Jackson is up here and then Baker Mayfield is below. So if Baker can play better and more consistently, then I think Browns have all the tools to be a better team.
Omar, so Cleveland's getting Odell Beckham back this year. I'm a big believer in Odell Beckham this year, but does that make a difference in your estimation for Baker Mayfield?
To tell you the truth, I have always been pretty high on Odell. I've tried to get him in the past in fantasy leagues. I know you have too. But like Colton said, what it comes down to, because they are a good team with or without him, what it comes down to is them making, those plays when it comes down to it most. Because there was a lot of opportunities for them last year where I think that, they are in a tough division, but, if they make those plays, I think they have what it takes to, they could take the Ravens in that division. I think that they just got to really try for it this year. If Baker Mayfield really wants to prove himself, then he's going to have to do it again this year.
Another couple teams that could maybe take the Ravens. So I am the only one of us three here that does not have another team, a third team from the AFC North getting into the playoffs. Both of you do. And so I want to go to Omar first on this, because you have the one that was probably the biggest shock of all the picks we sent in, is you have the Cincinnati Bengals getting into the playoffs next year. So I want you to explain.
I'm on the hype since last year when I drafted Joe Burrow in our main league. I've just liked the Bengals, and I think you've also made me kind of a Clemson fan, because T. Higgins, Jamar Chase going into this year, and Tyler Boyd. I think they have three solid weapons at wide receiver. The only other team I can see, with like maybe like another solid three would be maybe the Cowboys. But other than that, this team has like a really good set of young wide receivers. They have Joe Mixon coming back now with, new legs. And they got a good, better line now this year too. So I think they have what it takes to, show themselves, that they're not going to be the Cincinnati Bengals that they've been, maybe the last 10 years or so, just making it, to playoffs every now and then, but never getting a playoff win. So I think that, this year we're going to see a difference.
All right. And Colton, you are thinking at least not much of a difference for another team, the Pittsburgh Steelers you have getting in. I'm pretty down on the Steelers, but you've got them in the wild card. So
I didn't want to be high on them. I didn't want to, but as I was going through making my picks week by week, I just kept making the Steelers have wins. Like I was like, oh, they should beat this team. They should beat this team. So when you go through their schedule, I don't personally view them as an 11-6 team, but it's just kind of how it came out. I don't want to view them as that, but it's just like their team isn't bad. Like their defense is top 3, right? So they have a top 3 defense. So when you have a top 3 defense, there's only so much worse that your offense has to be to where you don't win games, right? So like you look at their offense, Big Ben, we trash him, but his year by year stats are decent. He has parts or weeks where he breaks down, but in general, like when you look at the end of the season stats, you're like, yeah, I guess I hate him, but he did pretty good, so I got to give it to him in that. And Omar mentioned the Bengals wide receivers, and you got to look at the Steelers wide receivers who have a nice trio themselves with Johnson, Claypool, and Juju, who stayed another year. That 3 is really talented. All of those guys on their own could be wide receiver 1s. I know we haven't seen it much from Juju, but he has the potential. Obviously, we saw his ceiling in, what was that, 2018, 2019. And we saw what he could do, and his potential is huge, right? So if they can reach that, then you got Najee Harris that they brought in, a good O-line. They have everything that they need on offense and obviously their defense. So I don't see why they couldn't be a good team. It's just, it comes down to Big Ben, I guess. It's kind of like a cop-out. I mentioned that before, but with Mayfield, but it really does just depend on these QBs because their defenses are stacked.
all right. Well, so from a team that you don't want to be high on in the Pittsburgh Steelers to a team that I don't want to be high on, the Tennessee Titans in the AFC South. So up until the Julio Jones trade, I wasn't even going to include the Titans in my playoff teams. But I'm the only one of the 5 of us that did this survey, and 3 of us here, that put the Colts taking this division. So I feel like I might need to justify myself there. But Omar, do you have any concerns about the Tennessee Titans like I do?
I did have a few concerns. Like you said, Julio on the team now kind of makes a difference in my opinion, because they did lose Jonnu Smith. They lost, I believe, Humphreys also. So I think they're
and
Corey Davis. You're absolutely right. So their wide receiver 3, I believe, might be Josh Reynolds. And I think their tight end starting is also Anthony Firsker, but from what I hear, he's one of those make it or break it guys too. He has yet to prove himself completely too. So I think with Julio and AJ Brown, they're going to be making a lot of crazy plays this year. Because I'm a firm believer in Tannehill. He's definitely like evolved since he was on Miami. He's definitely like a top 5, I think, redraft quarterback. And I think you're right. There was a few concerns, but I think they can manage through them.
Colton, how much of this is on Carson Wentz? Because let me make my pitch for the Colts real quick right here. We know last year the Colts defense was one of the best. They ended up being 11th in points allowed and 11th in yards per play. The Titans defense in both of those rankings came in 24th in each of them. So we know the Colts have the better defense. We know Phillip Rivers was solid, if not spectacular, at quarterback for the Colts next year. How much of this is on Carson Wentz, and how much do you think his last year in the hectic organization that was the Philadelphia Eagles is going to carry over into 2021?
Oh man. Okay, so just as a precaution or just as, a starter, I had the Colts going. I think I have the Colts 7-10. So obviously I have them with the losing record and I'm not high on them at all. And it literally, you hit the nail on the head. For me, it comes down to wins. I know I've kind of played this on this podcast. Oh, it's on the QB, but really with these teams that I mentioned, they don't really have an excuse besides QB, right? So like Patriots, Steelers, all Browns, even the Colts to an extent, none of it really, they don't have a bad base, right? I can't say that, oh, this quarterback's going to do good, but the team sucks like a Houston with Watson, because the base of what they're using is good. It's just all up to the QB. And I don't know if his mechanics improve that and wins. I know it was a dumpster fire with the Eagles, but you saw Jalen Hurts come in and look way better than Wentz had for the past 2 years for them. So it really just comes down to if he can fix his mechanics at all. And I don't know how a QB goes from like a top 10 rated QB to like a garbage backup one, like Wentz did last year. And it really kind of concerns me, right? He has a history to where you want to vote that he, raise back up, positive regression, and be a good QB again. But I can't really say that he will. I'm just really concerned of how he's going to make that offense look. And I hated Rivers coming in, but I gotta admit his year that he had with the Colts was huge, and I just don't think Wentz could replicate that.
Let me real quick make the positive regression case for Carson Wentz. So he is back with Frank Reich, who was his quarterback coach or offensive coordinator in Philadelphia for a while. I think that was a big part of his success there. And really, if you look at his 5 seasons in the NFL so far, outside of his rookie year, they were all more like his 2019 season than last season. Last season was the outlier for Wentz. So 2019, for example, this almost the same terrible supporting cast that he had. He threw for 4,039 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. So you want to see more touchdowns from your starting quarterback there. But I think him coming in, being back with Frank Reich, getting this running game that's going to be huge for the Colts next year with Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack coming back. I just feel like Wentz can be a serviceable enough starter for the Colts to get by enough games. They have a better defense than the Titans. And I'm more worried about a Tennessee Titans team that comes in with Julio Jones. Maybe Julio doesn't hold up all season, and they're left with one receiver, A.J. Brown, the entire season. And teams are stacking the box to mess up Derrick Henry's rushing game and stymie Ryan Tannehill from getting outside the pocket. Of all the teams I'm picking to win the division this year that did not win their division last year, I think I feel best about the Colts, even with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, so it's a little different take. I just if so I'm so now I'm speaking to Tennessee. I just think Ryan Tannehill is amazing. He went from, okay-ish on the Dolphins to Tennessee, a huge, probably one of the like greatest like transformations for a QB that I've seen after they switched teams. It's actually crazy what he's done with the Titans after he switched. Consistent 30 plus touchdowns a year. He manages the ball well, gets yards. They brought in Julio Jones, AJ Brown. Ferkser looks to be a good tight end. I'm not sure, but towards the end of the season, he got some play and they felt comfortable enough to let Jonnu go. So I really do think the Titans are the better team.
All right. And I will say this before we move on. Even if the Colts are not as good as we think, T.Y. Hilton is going to have a pretty good bounce back year at age 32 with a strong-armed Carson Wentz. I feel very confident about that, regardless of what the Colts record ends up being. So I feel the best about all my picks of the Colts winning the division. Here's one I am wondering if Omar feels the same about, because we went into the AFC West. I was expecting to get back Chiefs. And I got 4 Chiefs picks back and 1 pick for the Los Angeles Chargers. And that came from the Las Vegas Raiders fan in our group. So Omar, why the Chargers over not just your Raiders, but over the Kansas City Chiefs?
I would like to say, first of all, in this first episode of the podcast, that fuck the Chiefs. So
We'll
I
never be
think,
monetized now.
yeah. So the Chargers, I think, are the team to watch this year. They have weapons like all the way around, starting with Justin Herbert, who is, I think, a quarterback who we're going to be talking about for the next, I don't know, 15, 20 years. He's got just like everything that you want to see in a quarterback. And he like emphasizes that and like brings that out onto the whole field, onto his whole team. He's got Keenan Allen, who's also like a strong role model for all the wide receivers on the team. We got Mike Williams coming back healthy this year. You got at tight end this year. They picked up a few rookies, and then their starter, who was that?
It'll be Jared Cook this year,
That's
replacing
right.
Hunter Henry.
That's right. And he didn't make that big of an impact, I think, personally, in New Orleans last year. But I think he's going into a place, the Chargers, who are known to use their tight ends, I think, a decent amount. And I think that he can fit that role pretty well. I think Antonio Gates did that for like a long time there. And, I really liked him there. And then their running backs, Austin Eckler, top, I think, 5 PPR running back. That dude is crazy. And then their O-line looks nasty as hell. As a Raiders fan, I can see, our competition and know that we're gonna have a tough few years ahead of us when it comes to playoffs.
So you have the Raiders finishing third in the division, I assume.
Yes.
How much of that is you picking from your head, and how much of that is you as a fan trying not to get your own hopes up for next season?
Well, I love my Raiders, but I've been a Raiders fan since I think 2003, and I don't think I've seen a winning season besides one. So I am always disappointed. I'm okay. But if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos, I will cry because we will definitely be last in the division.
All right. Well, let me make the case for your Raiders then, because they are in a way my Raiders, because I am
Please
one of the
try.
biggest I am one of the biggest Derek Carr fans around. And I look at the Raiders last year. Their problem was obviously defense, right? We know this. We know Derek Carr's good. We know Darren Waller, Nelson Aguilar, Josh Jacobs. That offense was pretty good last year. The problem has been the defense. And you look at what they went out for the offseason, they were able to add Yannick Ngakoue and Solomon Thomas. And you look at all these young guys they have spread around this defense, Cleveland Farrell on the edge, a lot of the young DBs, Abrams. I just feel like there's no way this defense could be worse than next year, right? The worst case scenario is this defense is the same as last year. And I think what's most likely is this defense will at least be mildly better. And when you look at this offense, there's not going to be a huge drop off. They replaced Nelson Aguilar with John Brown, who's been far more consistent and one of the most underrated receivers in the league over the last few years with the Ravens and then with the Bills. They replaced Devontae Booker, who was checked in to give Josh Jacobs a rest on the sideline. They replaced him with Kenyon Drake. So that's another huge weapon out of the backfield. And then you look at the offensive line. Yes, they lost Rodney Hudson. They lost Gabe Jackson. They went out and drafted Alex Leatherwood, who might have been a reach in the first round, but is still a day one starter. And he would have been a perfect pick in the second round for him anyway. I just feel like this Raiders team, this is going to be the year it all gets put together. And if not, I think John Gruden has a lot to answer for, because I don't think this Raiders team could ask for a better situation going into the next year. Because looking at the teams I have in the wild card, the Patriots and the Titans, I don't feel super solid about either of those teams. I have the Raiders just missing the playoffs. If I had to put money down on any of those three teams, I would put it on the Raiders right now. I think that they are going to have enough to get in. We saw them beat the Chiefs last year. They were one of the only teams to beat the Chiefs last year. And they played them close in their second game in the loss. So, Colton, you have the Chargers getting in the wild card. Did I persuade you to maybe give the Raiders a little more benefit of the doubt going into the season?
Not at all, actually. For me, it's I don't know, man. They're just a mediocre team, and it's a mediocre team based, and it's bad coaching. So for me, it's like I don't see them improving until Gruden is gone. And I could see a new head coach coming in and just cleaning house in general because yeah, like I said, they need to have a few more good drafts before they can actually like compete. And I don't know what that means for Derek Carr if they're gonna have to get rid of him because he's not very old, but he's in his 30s now. It's not like he's young enough to sustain while they rebuild around him. And they have added pieces, but I don't think they'll be enough to compete with the team like the Chiefs, which who's better than the Chiefs? Just maybe the Bucs on
Well, for
paper.
one game last year, it was the
The
Las Vegas
Bucs.
Raiders.
Yeah, that's true. Division game though, stuff can happen. But I don't even think the Raiders are the second best team in the division. I think that would have to go to the Chargers, right? So it just comes down to a point where like I don't think they see improvement until a new coach is implemented, I think. And it'd just be like a clean house type thing.
I will say that I would feel a lot more confident in my Raiders pick this year if Jack Del Rio is still the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm sure Omar agrees
for
with that.
sure.
Yeah, I love Del
Yeah.
Rio. I really don't know why they got rid of him so quickly, So, but I think that Gruden's also on his final year, the same year that Del Rio was on before they canned him. So we'll see.
All right. For me, I just feel like the Chargers are going to be good this year, but I feel like it's going to be kind of like the Cardinals this year, where they're a team that's in the playoff hunt up until the end, and they're a team that needs another year to get it all put together. They got a new head coach this year. That's just my feeling on the Chargers, but I love the Chargers. I love Justin Herbert. I'm one of the many that was very wrong on Justin Herbert as a prospect. So I hope to see both the Raiders and the Chargers get into the playoffs this year, but we'll see. The NFC East, it was probably the toughest division to pick just because all of these teams were just so bad last year. And we all came to a different answer here. So Colton, you have the popular answer. You have the Dallas Cowboys. That's the team most people I think would pick right now to win the division. Is it just as simple as Dak Prescott's back? This is the best offense?
It's that combined with they're all not very good teams, I would think, in that division. We just saw Redskins go to the playoffs with a losing record. So obviously the division sucks, right? Our football team. Sorry, Washington football team. But the team obviously isn't that good, right? So but they're the best team in that division. They got Dak coming back, obviously, like you mentioned. They have Elliott. They have a really good trio. Again, we mentioned trios before. Gallup, CD, and Amari Cooper, a really good trio. Probably the best trio in the league, I would say, if you look at what they can do, each of their specialties. And then you also have a pretty bad defense. Their defense isn't great, right? But you look at what they drafted, and their first 4 picks of the draft were all defense. So obviously they're trying to address D-line, secondary, and all the stuff they need. And hopefully linebackers like Leighton Vander Esch, who used to look like a star, can actually play up to his potential and stay healthy, right? So that's what we hope for the Cowboys if you're a Cowboys fan. And I just think that the competition there just means that they'll get into playoffs just by virtue of being average. So,
Omar, you do have the Cowboys getting into the playoff, but you have them in as a wild card, and you have the defending champion Washington football team getting in. And is this just so simple as it was for the Cowboys with Dak Prescott being back? Is this as simple as the Washington football team is a good defense with good weapons, and they finally have a quarterback that is better than Dwayne Haskins and what was left of Kyle Allen last year?
Yeah, so yeah, you kind of maybe hit it on the nail. I think that they're definitely like a top 5 defense in the league. And on top of that, Rivera is a decent coach. We saw him put up a lot of great seasons over there in Carolina. And then Fitz magic. If we're talking fantasy, he's Fitz magic. He's known to put up numbers. Sometimes he has his off weeks, but he's known to put up those crazy weeks, puts up 30 plus points. And they did add a lot of good weapons. You got Antonio Gibson coming back, who we're all pretty high on. He's coming back for a second year, and I think we all are going to see a great year from him again. And then they added De'Ami Brown in the offense and Curtis Samuel in the wide receiver core, which is just incredible because now they have Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin together with that. I don't think, there's not too much more you can ask for there in an offense. So yeah, if the Cowboys look healthy again, I think we could see, both of them make a run for it. But if Cowboys for whatever reason, Dak can go down, Zeke can go down to somebody, I think they could give the Cowboys for sure a good run for their money.
Now, I will say, I think both of you have me beat in terms of these two teams that we just talked about have the highest floor in the division. Where if this is another bad division like it was last year, those two teams will still be decent. But I went with the highest ceiling, I think, of all these four teams, and that's the New York Giants. And it's just because I think they're going to be more well-rounded than either Washington or Dallas. Giants defense last year was 9th in points and yards per play. This is a very good defense. It has one of the most underrated corners in the league in James Bradbury. They brought back, was it Leonard Williams they brought back? They brought back him. Just looking at this Giants team, all it really depends upon, again, is the quarterback, Daniel Jones, if this is really his year. And I think when you add Kenny Golladay, you add Kadarius Toney, you're getting Saquon Barkley back, hopefully healthy for most of the season. You got Darius Slayton still there. I'm not big on Evan Ingram, but he's there, as so is Sterling Shepard. To me, if all of these teams are performing at their peak, I'm taking the Giants because I don't trust the Cowboys defense. And to be honest, I don't trust a Ron Rivera coach football team that doesn't have a superstar difference maker like the Panthers teams did with Cam Newton. Cam Newton made the Panthers more than Ron Rivera in my estimation. So to me, I just got to be all in on the Giants. My only concern, not even really Daniel Jones, is Jason Garrett is still the offensive coordinator. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. But I think this Giants football team is going to get in as the 4 seed this year.
And that's fair too, right? So Giants, they're not bad. They're not as bad as what people make them out to be. It's just I feel like they're just really far from being a true competing team, even within that division. I feel like Cowboys are just closer to actually being, I had Cowboys as an average team. Giants and all the rest are a little bit below average. And that's honestly just kind of evident from last year's division rankings, right? You saw their division and what the teams were able to do and what they weren't able to do. And most of it was just down to them not being ready to compete, right? So I just think the Cowboys are closer to that. And I'd rather bet on Cowboys-led Dak Prescott than a Giants-led Daniel Jones, who might be out of the league in a year or two. Or at least, at the very least, backup.
That's entirely fair. I am staking my claim on a Daniel Jones breakout 2021. Buy your tickets because I think it's happening this year.
So. And as much as that could happen, I think what we could also see is, maybe the Eagles surprise us all too, because they seem to be looking like a different Philadelphia team. I'm not like crazy high on them, but I think maybe like a year from now, they could look like a, solid team that could win the division too,
In this cluster of a division, I would say anything's possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go to one that's a little more ironed out. We're all on the Packers. Of the 5 of us, 4 of us picked the Packers to win this division. If Aaron Rodgers leaves the Packers, does that change your pick? Because I have the Vikings in as a wild card, so it would change my pick, and I'll explain that in a bit. But does Aaron Rodgers leaving the Green Bay Packers change your pick here, Colton?
I was actually going to add that as a caveat. Aaron Rodgers leaving definitely changes everything, right? So in that case, I haven't even went back and checked, but my next best team is Minnesota. So I guess the Vikings fill that slot that Aaron Rodgers would leave. Because we really don't know what Jordan Love will do, right? We don't know. We've seen him be good and bad at times, and that's in college, right? So I don't know if, from what I've gathered of Jordan Love, he's either the best quarterback we've ever seen or the worst. And there's really no in between with him, it looks like. So if they can iron out his issues, and when Rodgers leaves, if he leaves, then he might be ready, and the Packers still might win that division, because Vikings aren't world beaters or anything, but it definitely does change things a lot.
What about you, Omar? You agree with that?
Well, as I think you remember, when I sent you my picks, I wrote that in. I said if Aaron Rodgers is
Yes.
still there, and yeah, he's a playmaker. He whenever you need him most, he's there. And I think that Minnesota definitely beats them if he's not there. They have a solid team. Kirk Cousins, I think, is definitely like an overseeing quarterback. He's definitely always putting up solid numbers in fantasy. Um, and do they have Justin Jefferson, who's, personally probably one of my favorite young wide receivers out there. Uh, if Aaron Rodgers were to leave, I don't believe the Packers have what it takes to be a playoff team. I think I would even say something crazy like Hunter, and that the Bears would beat them out and be second in the
Wow.
division.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, Hunter, I love you, man. But the Packers, I think they have to do some changes if they're going to change their quarterback there, because I don't think Jordan Love has the weapons that he needs to, make him a playoff team.
Yeah, we're all in agreement here. I will add the Minnesota Vikings last year were 11th points scored per game. They were 29th in points against. Just terrible defense, but they went out, they added Dalvin Tomlinson, Nick Vigil, Patrick Peterson, Mackenzie Alexander, and Xavier Woods. This defense should be better next year. I think this is a playoff team, even if they barely sneak in. But we're all in agreement that they'll take this division if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, which I think he will.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not too worried about that. But so the NFC South, of the 8 divisions, we were unanimous, the 5 of us and the 3 of us here, on the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South. So now it comes down to which team do we think is most likely to knock the Buccaneers off in the NFC South? And Colton, again, just like with the NFC East, you have the popular pick here. You have the New Orleans Saints, and you have getting into the wild card. So is it just that easy that it's the consensus pick?
Oh man, I think so. It's just when you look at this division, I don't think the Panthers are there, and I don't think Atlanta's there, even though they just picked the god Kyle Pitts. I just don't think that magically could fix their defense. So you look at the New Orleans Saints and you think their QB situation is bad, but everything else is elite, right? Their defense is elite. You got elite offensive pieces with Michael Thomas and Kamara, and the Trout God, obviously the most elite tight end in the league. So you got him. And I think Taysom's good enough if he wins a job to be able to game control and win games and let Sean Payton kind of puppeteer him like he usually does, right? So good game controller. And then you got Winston there who can bomb deep. I don't know if Winston is going to be a good real life choice. I really want him to play for fantasy, right? Everyone wants him for fantasy. I just don't know if 30 for 30 Jameis can really win games like that. But I don't really like Taysom, but it's just to the point where he's a good QB in the sense that he can win games for them, right? So when you look at individual situations, he's not as talented or as good as other teams with other QBs, but he's good enough to game control and let Sean puppeteer him. So I think just in that sense, they should win enough games to make the wild card.
Now, Omar, you and I, we are the delinquents here in popular opinion on the NFC South. You are in on the Atlanta Falcons. So I want you to go ahead and make the case for the Falcons before I make a fool of myself after you.
Yeah, you're definitely a madman, but it's crazy because I'm usually the person, in our group chat defending the Saints, but I think the Falcons are, like going to be a fun team to watch. I hope they're the second best team in our division this year, but regardless, they're just always a contending team. They have Calvin Ridley, who is a crazy good wide receiver. They have Russell Gage, who is going to be able to fill in the wide receiver 2 role, in my opinion, pretty well. He's proven his numbers before in the past, to be the wide receiver 3. So, I mean, as long as he can keep doing what he was doing, I think he'll be fine. And then, like Colton mentioned, we have Kyle Pitts, who's a tight end. We haven't seen in the last, I don't know, 10 years come out of the draft. He's just something else. And I think we're going to be seeing crazy plays from him all year. And Mike Davis, who filled in the role for Christian McCaffrey, I think just almost, as well as Christian McCaffrey, besides maybe a few catches that Christian McCaffrey would definitely put on top of him every week. But other than that, he's looking well all over, the pictures we're seeing on social media. Mike Davis definitely has Javion Hawkins there to back up. I think who I overheard in our rookie draft, a lot of people were high on Javion Hawkins. And I think he'll do just fine too. But, if you want to, you can try and make your case for the Panthers. Let's see what you have to say.
I wrote here in the show notes, and you guys saw this, was Zach, God help him, makes the case for the Carolina Panthers, because I know I'm going to put myself out here right now and they'll just break my heart by October. But I'm going to do it because that's what Panthers fans do. So Carolina Panthers defense was 18th in points against last year. They were pretty average defense. And this is a defense that got better this year. They added J.C. Horn at corner. They're moving Jeremy Chin back to safety where he belongs because we added Denzel Perriman at linebacker. And we added Hassan Reddick in free agency as well. So looking at this defense, Brian Burns is one of the best pass rushers in the league. He now has Hassan Reddick lined up on the other side of him. I look at these defensive backs, I feel a lot better about having J.C. Horn lined up next to Dante Jackson. And I think this defense is good enough. The question is, as we went so often, me and Colton have said during this podcast, is the quarterbacks. So offensively, I know the Panthers have some offensive line problems, but I think they'll be fine. It comes down to Sam Darnold. And my big concern for Sam Darnold is the turnovers. But I look at what Joe Brady and this offense got out of Teddy Bridgewater last year. Teddy Bridgewater is the epitome of a mediocre backup caliber starting quarterback. And he put up some pretty good numbers last year, 3,733 yards for him, 15 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Those are pretty similar yards per game to what Darnold had in 2018 and 2019. Obviously, Darnold missed a few games in both of those years, so it's hard to do a one-to-one comparison. But I see what Joe Brady got out of Teddy Bridgewater last year, and I fail to see how he can't get a little bit better out of a more talented individual like Sam Darnold. So are they going to make the playoffs? I don't have them in. I think this is a team, a successful season would be 9 wins. I think a 9-8 record. That's kind of where I have them picked right now. And it's just difficult for me to look at a Jameis Winston-led Saints team and feel very confident in that pick. I know that sounds rich coming from the guy that's picking a Sam Darnold-led Panthers team, but still, I'm in on this defense. This defense is going to be so fun to watch next year. And I look at this offense, they lost Curtis Samuel, but they added Terrace Marshall and Dan Arnold, who I think is going to have a really underrated season as a tight end. So am I crazy? Yes. But that is the life of the Panthers fan. And I feel okay about this as of now. And we'll check back in October to see how terrible it looked.
That's fair. Definitely fair as a fan.
So speaking of fans, the NFC West, the last division here, and Colton's beaming because he knows that the Rams are possibly the best team in football right now. Colton, explain to the people how much better the Rams are going to be now that the most underrated quarterback in the league, Matthew Stafford, is running that offense.
And yeah, that's the key, right? Matthew Stafford is here now. Jared Goff is gone. Pretty much almost the same defense. John Johnson, Troy Hill gone, but we have other pieces there to fill in with Darius Williams. We have Jalen Ramsey. We have David Long, who we drafted in the second round in 2019. And he was a very good QB or cornerback in college, according to PFF. So we definitely have pieces there. We're not going to miss Troy Hill. Very streaky. John Johnson, we will miss on defense as our strong safety, but we have Jordan Fuller and we have Taylor Rapp there, who are very good and very young players. So the defense is fine. Aaron Donald, obviously, we brought back Leonard Floyd. The defensive line is good. Sebastian Joseph Day, he has like an 85 PFF grade. If you guys didn't know about him, very good nose tackle there. And the offense obviously is just minus Jared Goff plus Matt Stafford. And that's a huge difference there, right? We know what Jared Goff can do. He's obviously been a Pro Bowl caliber QB, right? But the past 2 years, we've just looked and saw that even backup like John Walford is better than him. So in this system, Matthew Stafford coming in is huge, right? Matthew Stafford, a top 10 QB, top arm talent. He has everything he needs for the Rams to go far and deep into the playoffs. And I think that's what we're all expecting here. And yeah, I'm not concerned with Matthew Stafford's history with the Lions because the Lions are a dumpster fire. So it just is what it is, right? Better QB, and you got a whole thing going, right? Rams are already a good team. We've already won playoff games every year. We're usually always in the playoffs, except 2019, which we would have made it in 2019 if they had the playoff rule that they have now, where two extra teams can make it. So realistically, with those rules, we should have never missed playoffs since McVay has been here, and we got Matthew Stafford minus Jared Goff. So yeah, I'm very confident, obviously.
We're all pretty confident in the Rams this year.
Yeah.
So, Omar, let's go to the team you and Colton have finishing second in the division. You have them getting in as a wild card, the San Francisco 49ers. So, really, this is a team a lot of people are sleeping on because they were in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. So, why the Niners, and who do you think is their starting quarterback by the end of the season?
Well, great question there because I'm going to answer that immediately. So if they were smart, they'll start their first round pick, Trey Lance, immediately because, as I think you agree with me. I forget if Colton does, but Jimmy Garoppolo is no bueno. He's garbage.
Doesn't have it.
Yeah, and so the faster they bring out Trey Lance, the better because he's got all the weapons now that I think they're a top offense this year with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel looking healthy again. They also have one of the best tight ends in the league. They have George Kittle. And then in the running backs, they are usually scattered, but they have solid backs. They have the starting, I think Raheem Mostert was announced a starter who is an explosive back. He's known to drop like a 60-yard run, like every other game, it's like ridiculous. And now they drafted Trey Sermon in I think the third round, fourth round.
Something like that.
Yeah, and he was ranked probably my fifth rookie back, maybe even fourth in our rookie draft. And he's definitely got what it takes to fill in the Jeff Wilson's role and being, that solid, quick few yards here and there back. Definitely a compliment to Mostert. But yeah, definitely I can see the Niners being a team being talked about this year, fantasy wise, and just being a contender for the NFC.
Yeah, and so like I said earlier with the Chargers, this is the year I think the Cardinals put it together. I think we saw them last year. Kyler Murray was banged up by the end of the year, but this is a team that was on the verge of a playoff appearance. And to me, if they don't get it done this year, I think Cliff Kingsbury is looking for jobs this summer because this team, this is the best that the Cardinals have been since 2015 when the Panthers ran them out of the NFC Championship. I have a lot of faith in this Cardinals offense. The corners concern me here for the Cardinals on defense, but other than that, I think this is a pretty solid team. I have them getting into the playoffs. I have Kyler Murray sustaining an entire season of MVP hype rather than the first few games of last year. But what I found more interesting in our picks here is that all three of us here have the Seattle Seahawks making the playoffs, but none of us have them in the top two of this division. So we all know that Seahawks are good enough to get there, but we're not confident that they are a contending team. What do you make of that, Colton? Is that correct?
And that's just the function of the division, right? You look at this division, undoubtedly the best in football when you compare teams' talent. And it's just a horrible situation as a Rams fan to be in, right? So you got all four of these teams, if you put them in the NFC East, are definitely making playoffs and no wild card, like actually winning the division, making playoffs, right? But in this division, NFC West, you got a team like I had the Cardinals as a fourth team in the division with a record of 10-7. So like it's difficult for any team in this division just because it's the division of death, right? So all these teams are good. No one's saying that, but there's just levels to what we think these teams will be within the division. And it really just comes down to division games, right? So obviously, if I have each team, the worst team is 10-7, I have them beating up on teams outside the division. But those division games, I think, will really be telling for how we will be looking at these teams come playoff time.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think we should transition here into our final picks that we did not submit earlier. So I have no idea what you guys are going to answer right now. But it is who we have being the number one seed in both conferences and getting that bye week. It doesn't mean they're going to go to the Super Bowl. For example, I still think the Rams are the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC, but I have a hard time saying they're going to be the number one seed because I think that division is going to beat up on each other. I could really see a situation where the Rams come out of the division with a 3-3 record, and the Buccaneers come out of their division with 6-0. That's already three game edge going into the non-divisional games. So I have the Buccaneers as the number one seed in the NFC, and I have, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs as the number one. No, you know what? No, I'm going to switch it up here. I've got the Buffalo Bills as the number one seed in the AFC. I think this is the year for the Buffalo Bills. So, Omar, who do you got?
Well, I was gonna say, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I am definitely hot on the Buffalo Bills this year. Josh Allen, I have him as one of my top. He was definitely somebody who I wanted to really fall to me in our draft, but there was no way he was going to fall in our dynasty draft. He's just the quarterback, that we're going to be talking about. Like I said, same with Justin Herbert for the next 15 years. He's just crazy good too. He's got that arm strength and he's got weapons definitely out in his field with Stephon Diggs, who I know you love because I hate you and we're rivals in our league, and I have to, hear it from you every time that he does crazy. So, but as far as the NFC, I definitely agree that nobody tops the Bucs again. They're the exact same team that just won the Super Bowl, and they're still hot. They got all their wide receivers coming back. They got their whole defense coming back. And Tom Brady is just, his ego is just crazy. And he says he's going to keep winning. So we'll see.
Colton, if the Panthers knock off the Buccaneers this year and prevent them from getting the number one seed, I'm not going to brag about it, but I'm just going to say that I'll mention it at some point. So who do you have as the number one seed?
I'm still rolling off the Bucs losing to the Rams. So technically the Rams are Super Bowl champions of 2020. So we can roll off that as well. I'll be the boring one here, and I'll have the Bucs first in the NFC, and I'll have the Chiefs first in the AFC. I think I have the Bucs going 15-2, and I have the Chiefs going 16-1 as the best team in football. Regardless of conference. And as a Rams fan, I definitely do want to see the Rams finish first. But like you said, just by way of the division, it's going to be hard to get first seed in NFC. I don't see it, but obviously the team is talented enough to make it happen. I don't think the talent disparity between the Chiefs and the Bucs compared to the Rams is really that big. If at all, honestly. It just comes down to division, right? So you're definitely right in your assumption that Rams will have a hard way to first seed.
Well, I hope I'm right in another assumption, which is that one loss that you have the Chiefs suffering is at the hands of the Las Vegas Raiders.
No, but we can fill that in there.
All right. Well, gentlemen, the inaugural podcast, I think it went pretty well. We'll see. We'll hopefully have some of the other gentlemen, Joseph and Hunter, who picked these divisions that we did not get to talk to them about their picks on. We'll hopefully have them on later versions of this, as well as Simon McGulpin and hopefully other people. So thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully with time we'll get better and you'll see a lot more content.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask us whatever you want and to, just be, the fans that we want. So thank you.
All right. See you next time.